Bring in Mark Kaigo on this now. Mark Kaigo is a digital entrepreneur and a founder Nendo. Thank you for making time for us, Mark. So we are talking about the internet that never forgets. And Roy T-Boy just asked me something very interesting, saying, does the person you portray online determine who you really are?
So I think I'll deviate a bit from the rest of the really great um, fellow, I guess, like speakers and experts on the topic. I think I want to introduce something we see with our eyes that I think young people have given a name to, but we don't necessarily acknowledge is such a big factor of online presences today. There was certainly what was acceptable in the early days of High Five. Trevor, you remember that? Or MySpace.
Yeah.
And then there was the early days of Facebook. And then there's now this Twitter, TikTok, 3, 6 seconds or less, and you're irrelevant or no one pays that much attention. So you may have heard of clout. So people do a lot of stuff for clout. Clout is a kind of the online drug, the 60 or 10 seconds or 3 seconds of fame people get. And people want to be notorious. They want to have really harsh or hard takes. They want to be on opposite sides of the issue because that's what's going to get you social currency right now. Hitting people right down the middle generally. And this is not advice I'm giving. This is like an evaluation. I think I have my personal opinion. I'm probably a bit more conservative. But just to put it in context, I think this cloud phenomenon of what people will go to, the lens they'll go to be controversial, to be provocative, to stand out for having very harsh, very hard opinions, does come back to bite you. But many people have made a persona, an image. You look at reality television, for instance, and while that's been going the better part of a decade, I don't need to introduce any of the Kardashians on television shows in Kenya that are the equivalent. They attract viewership because of the controversy, because of the sort of performative element. Even the thing with social media, and people take selfies and things like that, is you're in essence performing and positioning yourself in a certain image. Whether or not it's true, most people aren't exactly really interested in that. They're interested in maintaining that image, and that's just not everyone's doing it for clout. Some people are genuinely authentic, but certainly clout definitely rules the internet of today, and it's not making everybody happy, but it's a rule that nobody can deny exists and is present and is a form of social currency, whether positive or not.
So what are the effects of this from what you've been, your research? How is this affecting the younger generation growing up now?
Well, I definitely think there's a couple questions here. There's the questions of screen time. So just to start with that, so anywhere where there's a parent and a young person, they'll get a lot of screen time, and to a greater or less extent, that's a pretty core part of their identity, to be able to talk and interact with their friends. Snapchat, for instance, here in Kenya is a pretty popular platform, especially amongst teens, precisely for the reason that it itself erases everything that's been created on it 24 hours later. So you could know my Snapchat handle or name, but you will not be able to find anything I've posted unless I've said that to public. But two, it'll just disappear. So text messages disappear, photos disappear, videos disappear. This is what some people have called ephemeral content. We see it in WhatsApp status, we see it in Instagram stories, but when you look to places like that, that's an internet built for young people to never remember what they did over a day ago, right? It's very different from the Google and the Facebook of the world, and this is why young people don't prefer Facebook. It's because they're like, well, who would ever want to have a whole museum full of every one of their opinions and things like that? So one of the things that teenagers will have on Instagram, for instance, and if parents are watching, just, please stay with me, is they'll have, and many people have this, even adults and older people, they'll have what's called a Finsta. And, okay, so a Finsta is a fake Instagram where you are your real self. Most people don't have the name to this one, it's private, and you can change the username, delete all the photos, start again. Then you have the one that people know. This is the one that in the job interviews you say, please check out my Instagram. Right? So people will have multiple forms of an identity, many of which are just built around presenting the right image, but still giving them their space to express themselves in a private, closed inner circle. No strangers, no high school peers that you don't remember and aren't close to, but just people that you just want to be free and interact with, to express yourself as you wish. So screen time is the core of it, the way I would see it. So just how much screen time are we even spending? And some of the other experts you've had on the show this morning have discussed that.
All right. Mark, stay with me for a bit. Let's bring in Agnes Nonsinzi here. She's a music publicist and a TV show host. Agnes, thanks for making time for us this morning. We were talking about the internet that never really forgets. And now we are wondering,
Yeah.
you're in the public space. Is the person you portray online who you really are?
Well, yes, because I've learned not to have to, because for me, I feel like it's too much work to have two personalities. And it's much easier to be yourself than just to have the Beyonce and the Sasha Fierce, or the Nonsizi and just someone else who is not the other one. So for me, the person you see is the person when you meet, that's who you're going to meet.
All right. And so when you're talking to the young people, what do you tell them in terms of tweeting and putting pictures on Facebook? Because we know now it tends to come back and bite you after some time. And is it even fair to judge you by a post that you put in some times back?
All I know is that the internet never sleeps. It never closes a wink like this. But also, when we look at things that you've done way back, for example, things that I tweeted or things that I put on Facebook when I was 20 years old, 22 years old, I should not be so harshly judged by them, because people are allowed to change. And I would like to quote Kevin Hart, when Kevin Hart had the issue of the time he did a homophobic tweet, and then he could not be able to host the Oscars because of that tweet. And he said that if you don't believe that people change, then we cannot have this conversation. So there are people that along the way, they will change their views. We are allowed to change our minds. And also, I will quote one Patience Nyange, who is in Cardiff right now, when we had the issue of Pauline Njoroge again. And she's like, people are allowed to change along the way. You change your mind all the time. You change your mind. So why am I being judged so harshly about a tweet that I made, years ago? So I feel like people should be given room to express themselves, in that I'm able to say, this is what I meant, this is what I believe now, and I can be able to stand for it now. People are allowed to change, yeah.
And I see Mark Kaigwa shaking his head there. Mark, you don't think people are allowed to change?
I didn't think anybody could see me, Trev, but because I know what she's saying, Agnes is saying, is actually very good advice. It's like that's unfortunately not the way the game is played online. So it's I think it's great advice. I would give it to somebody because I believe it. But at the same time, I know from what I sort of see with my eyes that at one level you have, let's call them Kenyans online, or if you wanted to be specific about Kenyans on Twitter, let's even just segment them. Now, they have a decade-long history of coalescing as a mob, putting aside all their political differences, putting aside all of their respective like idiosyncrasies. I feel this way about it, you feel that way, and saying, if that is a bigger target than you or me, then we're going to go for it. And that has happened internationally. Someone tells CNN, when an international executive flies here, visits, the office of the president, and delivers an apology because of what Kenyans have said online, which I have a chapter of a book called Digital Kenya that came out a few years ago, which just documented how for about 5, 6, 7 years, from cyber cafes to smartphones, Twitter did that. This same audience is there waiting for any public figure. So that's the asterisk I'll put. When you're a public figure, you are going to undergo a level of scrutiny unlike anyone else. So typically the reason a public figure would have a Finsta, so like a lot of the biggest and most famous, I guess, like music artists of the world, many of them will have this because they're so locked into a certain image that the label, that society, that your publicists want you to present, that you need a small outlet. So sometimes you have a small private place, and only you keep it to an inner circle of people, just to keep them updated with things that you can't be held on the line for. Now there is, aside from that, the aspect of the longevity of time and how our thoughts evolve. They do evolve, and I think, as Derek said, there are tools out there that will automatically delete your tweets after a year. Facebook has presented the ability to kind of take the key and put in the privacy settings, so you don't have to have people coming onto your Facebook profile and kind of scrolling through it like the museum that it is, right? And you wouldn't be judged as harshly for it. It's incumbent for people to take that up if they intend to rise up in society and change their views, because that same mob, that group, they've made a habit of one thing, which is doing their research. Some of, you've heard this phrase that the DCI on Twitter, and I say that obviously in quotes because I don't, this institution does does a very good job at finding the small details and chinks in the armor
Yeah.
of what seem like very perfect and well established people. So watch out and do the work to make sure you present the best foot forward, even if
Yeah.
it means deleting the old stuff.
But you can't always present the best foot forward, Nonsinzi. I mean, there are certain times when you just want to speak out your mind, even though
Yeah.
things change eventually, but Twitter DCI are not going to forget.
To be you, because also by the time you are in the public eye, you sort of you especially get people who speak for the people. There are artists, for example, who use their music and their platforms to be able to call out things in the government, in the systems that are not working. And because I feel like what we need is emotional, how do I put this? How do we, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Because I was reading somewhere that the internet does not need civility. It needs just some ethics. You need to know how do I put this? Just not bluntly and just putting it, because there are tweets that you can read and you can feel these are emotions that are here. But there are tweets that you can read and say, wow, these are facts that have been presented in a way, even if I agree or I disagree with this, it has been presented in such a manner, because I feel like we only live one life. I'm not saying all of us be putting what we're feeling out there in a manner like, but we have this one life. And if you are in a space where there are people who just can't bottle up, the people who have a bigger calling on the space.
Yeah.
So it's how you will present it with facts, not emotions, so that you're able to relate that message. And if someone comes back, and this is what I believe, don't put public what you can't be able to justify or defend. So if I'm putting this out, it is because even if one day someone stops me in the street, and that's the thing with even being on TV, even because I've been there, it's like being yourself, in that even if someone stops you out there and they ask you, Agnes, are you against polygamy? The same thing. That's what you're going to say. And remember, even there's an interview I attended and we were having a conversation, and they were saying they were looking for someone who is authentic. Whatever you're going to put here on the screen, even if someone stops you in the street or in the garden or in your shamba working, you're going to be able to say the same thing. So it's being yourself, but not having an even I see people tweet banks and KPLC and there's a whole emotion on it. Just be able to separate emotions and facts and put things in a way that even if someone stops you in the street, you can be able to defend that.
So now we know in the streets you're against polygamy already, but still. So there's the issue.
No, I don't example.
There's the issue of necessity versus reality, Agnes. And this is where my issue is, because some people may portray a certain image online because somehow it brings them income. For example, and I know some people who are video vixens. They may show off a bit of skin here and there, and it brings them income because they figure this is the easiest way for them to make money. But it's not necessarily who they are. Yeah. However, now that necessity, what has necessitated them to do that, then looks like the new normal. So everybody else wants to do the exact same thing, in as much as that's not who they really are. So how do we sift through these differences and know this is work, this is the person?
So one thing is also, when you're putting yourself out there, you never know how people will perceive you. You never know how people will take you. So you could have just done it once and then people are like, could be a good vixen. And then you go and it's bringing you income, because again, I'm like, it's tough out here, and the things that you're doing that are bringing in money. But you as an individual, it is to know that this is a job, because literally that is what it is. It is not your lifestyle. It is a job, and I need to draw the line, because what happens is you as a person, you get swallowed into that personality and you start living a lie. And there's nothing as dangerous as starting living a lie where you have to live this life. And this happens to all of us who are in the limelight. You have to, and because you say you need to look like money, or you need to look a certain way for you to be able to make money. That is literally where shilingi huwa inamulikwa na ingine. You need to look a certain way. Even some influencers, especially who do fashion, traveling, but you need to draw the line and know this is job and this is my life, But the people behind the screens, or people who see us, sorry, not behind, people who see do not understand. So I tell everyone, don't believe what you see on the internet. Please don't. You know,
All right.
don't want to be so much like Nonsizi, and you don't know why you don't know my reason behind the why. You don't know why I'm portraying this life, you know, because people's journeys are so different. There are people who actually are living that life but are not showing it. So
Yeah.
before you start copying someone on the internet, please be very, very careful and understand what is your why, what is your reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason as to why, as Nonsizi, I do it, I entertain. There's a reason. It could be it brings me joy, or it could be it brings me money.
Yeah.
But also, even you as a person, when it's all about money, be able to make it different from your personal life, because we have seen scenarios where you're like, okay, you have believed this is your life so much and you actually don't have the money, because being in the limelight does not guarantee you money, and we all know that, or maybe we don't, but yes, being in the limelight does not guarantee you money. So be able to differentiate, or you'll sink into very bad decisions and mental issues.
All right. Yeah, we do know that. But Mark, the issue of authenticity, have you seen a relationship between this and a bit of depression even in the younger people? Because there's a need to live a certain way and to seem like you're a certain way, even though you really are not.
I mean, I think we have a bit of a false dichotomy here. Maybe it's making good TV, but I know how I feel about authenticity personally, but I can't impose those ideals on people. And the reason I say that is because the social currency of what gets you ahead, if you're looking at teenagers, or what some people call Generation Z, right, is very different. Their social norms, what's culturally acceptable to them. I mean, if I'm just to tell you about like and this is a particular community. There like I mentioned, Snapchat is big for them. There is I don't think I need to say it on the television, but there's a particular account that teenagers will take over and basically give you a day in the life, Kenyan teenagers. And when they take it over, you know, they talk everything about, like, from their sexual orientation to like their views on a whole number of things. And it's a very, very progressive space there. For teenagers to talk in private, and of course it's on Snapchat, so anyone can find it if you know where to look. But it's kind of an inner circle in that if you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard to find, because it's Snapchat, it's private by design. Now people like that are being authentic in a way that if that was to get out in any way, I mean, it would instantly put them in the view of millennials, some of whom may have brought a hashtag you may remember called Ifikie Wazazi. Now, this was millennials trying to tell the broader society about young people and what they're doing, which millennials did, but just had cameras. Now, in this case, it was, I think, high school students, you know, dancing very suggestively and so on. And I can't justify any of this. But as a person who does research online about cyber culture and its impact on broader society, this idea of authenticity is a foreign concept. People at the youngest age right now understand that to be online is to be a bit of a chameleon, or to have multiple masks that you're wearing. Now, that's not a good or bad thing. It is what it is. So you almost don't judge it in any particular way, because anyone who's a public figure like yourself, Trevor, or like myself now, knows that there's both. You know, there's Mark who could make good TV, and there's Mark who could kind of just, you know, not project and kind of just maybe be a bit more of what's my speed. But I know I have to be here and hold everyone's attention. So where does this lead to if we're talking mental health? Well, first, I think we have to talk to professionals clearly, first of all. And yes, I think an over-dependence or over-reliance or over-stimulation from the internet and that persistent checking in. You have platforms like Snapchat, which have been criticized for certain features, one called Streaks, for example, which it counts how many times you talk to certain people in your phone book on Snapchat through a private message or group message. And sometimes people feel, teenagers particularly, like they're actually tricked into maintaining a streak, and they actually get negative social consequences. So me and Trevor start a streak, and after a year, I have to say hi to you every day, because to me now, if I don't do that or you don't do that to me, does Trevor still like me? Is he still my homie? Is he still my guy? Yeah. And then, of course, there's just the ideas that would come with that. So the point is, I think for younger people, the authenticity thing is, I'd almost say, out of the window. For Generation Y or the millennials, I'd say that, who are quite old now, I should say. Okay. For them, it's just not as big of a deal, because we're seeing it right now that the mob prefers when there's some action as opposed to when things are idle.
All right. Agnes, I'll give you the final say on this very briefly, because you're running out of time.
Yeah. So I think to wrap up on the internet thing, like I say, don't put public what you can't be able to defend. And I feel like, just to add on what to Mark is saying, I think some of these things like authenticity and everything, they come with time, but when we are young, there's some mistakes that we will do that we might never erase. because I feel like I am a millennial, which I can say honestly here, maybe towards an older one. But these things that they have come with experience, and now I know better. I'm glad I didn't do bad tweets. If KOT gets receipts of me when I was young, then I don't know what's gonna happen. But ask yourself before you do that tweet, does it help anyone? Will it come to bite me back later? Then have a second thought before you just do anything. Just have a second thought. If it's very intense, sleep over it. Then by the time you're waking up in the morning, you still feel the same way, then go right ahead and do it. And again, be on up. It's good for all of us to make mistakes, to tweet badly, to be in emotions, to be angry. But when you're caught, just own up.
Okay.
Own up. That's what I can say. Be a responsible person on the internet.
All right.
But don't put people in bad. Don't do cyberbullying, basically. But when you happen to do something that is not right,
Yes.
when you're in the sport, just own up.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning, Agnes Nonsinzi, music publicist and TV show host, and Mark Kaigwa, digital entrepreneur and founder Nendo. We're talking about the internet that never really forgets. We're taking a quick break here on Daybreak. When we come back, big man Bazoo is here, Big Will, and Roy T-Boy. They're on the decks in just a bit, all right?